Q-switch technology, or a nanosecond pulse duration technology, has really been the gold standard for the last 20 years for tattoo removal and benign pigmented lesion removal. What we can tell you unequivocally is with Q-switch technology is it does an incredible job at removing those tattoos and benign pigmented lesions. The thing that we've found that is probably the most important thing when treating different tattoos is having multiple wavelengths to get the most colors of a tattoo. And as tattoos have evolved over the last 15 years, it's not just simply a black tribal band on somebody's arm anymore. That a 1064 laser may have been great for that, but if you see the folks today that have a sleeve that has orange and blue and yellow and green, I mean really the entire spectrum, having more wavelengths is important. Our flagship product actually has 3 wavelengths in it. It has a 1064 Q-switched, a 532 Q-switched, and a 694 Q-switched laser, all actual lasers, no converted dye, hand pieces, or anything like that. And the thing that's so important with having 3 wavelengths like that 1064 wavelength is really going to be your workhorse laser, if you will. Even if you are treating a red rose, that red rose is going to have dark ink in it. It's going to have black in there to make that red darker, and the stem is going to have black in it to make that green stem darker. And so that 1064 is really going to be your workhorse, and realistically probably use that 60 to 70% of all treatments. But once you have pulled out those darker colors, that's where having the additional wavelengths is key. A 532 wavelength is really going to be the wavelength that you go to when you see red and orange and yellow spectrum. And again, the thing that really has helped us rise to the prominence that we have is that 694 wavelength. We're using a 694 ruby, and that goes after the green and the blue ink, which has historically been the Achilles heel of the tattoo removal industry. And the fact that we have all 3 of those wavelengths in one device, that's really why we're at the place we are today in this industry. All right, so now you're going to put the cold air cooling on there. Okay. You're in charge of that. One of the things that we find is that when the patient's in charge of running the cold air, number one, they know exactly where they need the cold air. And number two, it's also very distracting. They're not thinking so much about the laser, but they're actually involved in the process. So we find that getting them involved by handing them the end of the Zimmer hose, it really helps mitigate pain and psychological concern about pain. So, all right, so we have this set up. We're using the 1064. We're going to do a test spot. We're going to try right here, perpendicular to skin. 3, 2, 1. How's that?
I can handle that.
Okay. So one of the things that's really interesting here is you'll see that we're using the 1064 wavelength, but that 1064 on the outline where we'd expect was incredibly well absorbed, the black outline of the palm tree. The inner part of the tree, which was filled with green, which would really be best absorbed by a 694 ruby wavelength, you can tell that it's still almost untouched ink. And so that's the thing that's, why it's so important to have multiple wavelengths when you're doing tattoo removal, because you really need those multiple wavelengths to get all the colors of the ink. Okay. Now what we did get is we're going to try, and we're going to go over the whole thing because we got the type of reaction we're looking for. We got a nice frosting, not too much, just a little bit of raised tissue, but that's really the sort of treatment that we're looking for. So what we're going to do now is, now that we've done one test spot, the patient survived, we're going to go back and we got the sort of treatment result that we're looking for. I'm going to go back to 10 hertz or 10 pulses per second, and we're going to try to go through this entire tattoo, probably in less than a minute. Now what we're going to see is there are going to be areas that, just like this, frost up and get the perfect reaction. And then there's going to be areas in between, like the red ink in between, the yellow ink over here, and some of the green ink in the palm tree that we probably don't see quite the reaction. But again, this is her first treatment, and really what we're looking for is to peel back the layers of the onion, get that black ink out, get down to the purest inks of green, red, yellow, and then next time we'll probably look at using different wavelengths. I'm going to try to not have as much overlap, so I'm going to move fast, so we don't have to do too many treatments. All right, you ready, Jesse?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. How we doing?
Good.
Painful?
Yep.
How was that?
It hurt.
It hurt,
but I'm good.
but I mean the whole treatment was less than a minute, and you can see, really where we got a good result, where we got great. You could hear the snap. It frosted up, but not too much. And even though we went over this green ink in between, we didn't get much of a reaction. Now, what I could do is I could go back to our 694 wavelength, the ruby wavelength, and specifically get some of those green spots. Again, because we didn't over-treat at this point in time, I'm probably comfortable doing that. Are you all right to take a few more spots? Okay. We're going to go back and just hit some of these green areas here with the 694. 3, 2, 1. Something down here on your ankle will take a little bit longer. Normally what we see is about the first 4 weeks, we don't see a whole lot of change. And then in that 4 to 6 week segment, that's when we really start to see some of those colors wash out in the body's system, just takes that out. So, it's one of those things to talk with your patients, make sure that they know what to expect, because in the next couple days they may think that nothing happened. But again, 4 to 6 weeks is when you really start to see some changes. Now, from a post-care standpoint, we'll put some polysporin on this. We don't want you to be in a hot tub tonight. We don't want you to be in the sun for the next few days. One of the benefits of our technology is we have this, the lenses and the optics in our OptiBeam technology that really allow us to give a good treatment without breaking the skin, but nonetheless, you have put laser energy into this. We want to treat it, carefully. When you do, shower or whatever, just pat it dry. Don't rub it. You will notice that it probably will itch. It's going to feel maybe like a little bit like a sunburn for the next day or two. Maybe for the next week or so, it will itch. Don't scratch it. And then, oftentimes people, just to remind themselves, if it's itchy, again, put some polysporin on it, just put a Band-Aid over it, and that keeps people from scratching. All right?